What is up, guys? BK Voiceover here, and welcome to my latest video. Today, we're kind of going to be doing a mashup of my weekly news segment, as well as going over the Bears-Seahawks game, preseason game 2, and kind of doing my game notes from that game and going over the good and the bad from that game. Unfortunately, there was a lot more bad than there was good. So before we get into the game recap, we're going to start just cover the little bits of news that have come out. First off, cuts happened a couple of days ago. They did have until tomorrow, but I guess when you know, you know. There were a couple surprising cuts that came out with this round. Most surprisingly of all was veteran linebacker Joel E.A. Booniway, previously of the Bears. He was expected to play a big role on special teams, but I guess the fact that he's part of the second round of cuts, they must have really not liked what they had seen. And to be fair, with how badly special teams played in the first two preseason games, I can understand their reluctance to play him again. And then on top of that, they also waived 4 UDFAs, including safety Bubba Bolden, who was a bit of a shocker. He was, like, in my opinion, the top UDFA that Seattle signed this offseason, so surprising that he's part of this second round of cuts. So yeah, Bubba Bolden, tight end Cade Brewer from Texas, defensive tackle Matthew Gotel, and cornerback Elijah Jones. No real surprises there. They were just really deep on the depth chart. They weren't going to make much of a difference. And then in addition to that, quarterback Drew Lock has returned to practice and is expected to play the vast majority of Friday's game against the Dallas Cowboys, since the plan was he was going to start against the Bears, but of course that never ended up happening because he got COVID and had to quarantine. So glad to see him back on the practice field. A couple of other guys are back on the practice field. Some positive updates about Damian Lewis. If you watched the game, you saw Damian Lewis went down pretty hard. Brought out the air cast, and they brought out the cart for him, and I think at that point we all thought that he was donezo for the entire season. That looked like it looked like it could have been like a broken ankle or a broken leg or something. Turns out it was just a lateral ankle sprain. There is no timeline for him to come back at this point, but it shouldn't take as long as as a high ankle sprain, which lingers around according to Pete. So yeah, the biggest thing is they're just trying to control the swelling, so there's a slim chance that he might be back for week 1, but I would not bet on that. So my guess is he'll probably be back sometime in the first few weeks of the season. And that's really the only big Seahawks news that has happened since we've last talked. So from there, we'll go on and we'll get into the Bears game. And I have to say, there was not 27-11 Bears win. This game was bad in so many ways, and we're gonna kind of recap them here. So to start off, we'll go to the box score. Obviously, Drew Lock did not play today, which sucks because he was supposed to start. So quarterback play, Gino played 10 for 18 for 112 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Was sacked twice. Both of those sacks were purely on Gino. So the completions, like, he did not do as bad as everybody thinks. There were a couple of key drops that receivers had. Freddie Swain had one hit him right in the chest, and he just dropped it. Derek Young had a bad drop. Freddie Swain also had another bad drop. So Geno Smith didn't do great, but it was some of that you also have to put on his wide receivers. They were doing everything possible to make sure that he looked terrible. So yeah, and then Jacob Eason, after Geno Smith tripped over his own guy and bruised his knee a little bit, Jacob Eason came out and played for the second half of the game, and he did not great. sub 50 completion percentage for 141 yards on 17 passes and a sack, a quarterback rating of 59.3. Eason was not good. He was throwing a lot. He had to throw a lot because they were like down by a ton, but he was just airmailing. His accuracy was all kinds of messed up. It was not fun to watch. I mean, I think we all knew that the quarterbacks were not going to be amazing. They were going to be mediocre to bad on this team, but goddamn, it sucks to see it in person. So yeah, Jacob Eason, Geno Smith, not impressive in the slightest. So moving on to the rushing game, similar to last week, your two flashiest guys being Travis Homer and DJ Dallas, they played great. Homer, 5 carries for 44 yards. I think he also had a catch. Yeah, 1 catch for 4 yards. DJ Dallas, 5 carries for 15 yards, but had 4 catches for 52 yards. Darwin Thompson had 6 carries for 34 yards and a rushing touchdown. He also had a catch for 7 yards. So the guys out of the backfield were doing a good job. I can't really be mad at the running game. They were doing everything that they could. They were averaging over 5 yards a carry. And again, some of that was the great offensive line work that was being done. But unfortunately, the offensive line was not, while they were still good, they were not as good as they were in week 1. Primarily because there were a lot of penalties. I know it says 3 sacks up here. It was ruled that none of those sacks were due to the offensive line. They were purely on the quarterback. So yeah, Charles Cross had a fantastic first game of the preseason, and then he followed that up with, when he wasn't being penalized, he was playing great. He had like a 72.3 pass blocking grade. That's good. That's good. But the problem is, he was penalized a lot. He had 4 false starts in that game and a holding penalty. That is not going to fly in an NFL game. So hopefully he finds ways to clean that up. Honestly, maybe they were just like a little confused because they had planned the whole week expecting to play with Drew Lock, and they ended up playing with Geno. But again, that you've played with both of them. You should understand their cadences, and you should understand understand the play calls, understand the protections, understand the behavior of your QB. So, sorry, them being like, oh, well, they were expecting to play with Drew Lock, and they ended up playing with Geno Smith is not an excuse. It's not a viable excuse to me. So, moving down to the receiving side of things, again, DJ Dallas led the team in receiving. Dude has been a good pass catching back. Really hope he sees more usage during the regular season. Penny Hart had a really good catch. This was honestly the offensive highlight of the game. 41-yard reception down the field from Geno. Kevin Cassis also had a pretty solid day and a solid on the offense and on special teams. 4 catches, 37 yards. Aaron Fuller, 3 catches, 34 yards. Colby Parkinson had a nice 20-yard grab. He showed that huge frame that he has, that 6'7" frame that he has, and being able to go up and catch that ball where nobody else could. Excuse me. Bo Melton, quiet day, 4 catches for 18 yards. Cade Johnson, another quiet day, except for having a horrible muffed punt that the Bears returned for a touchdown. It shouldn't have been a touchdown. It should have been down at the 1-yard line if they had actually taken a look at that, but it's whatever. It wouldn't have changed anything. This game was well gone by that point. Cade Brewer, a couple of catches, and then a few other catches here and there. Freddie Swain was hot garbage. 1 catch for 6 yards on 3 targets. Both of those targets that he missed, that he just dropped them. They were perfectly thrown passes, hit him right in the chest, and he just dropped both of them. Was this guy seriously our wide receiver 3 last season? Because I refuse to believe it, because this guy is so goddamn unmemorable that I can't buy it. Then, yeah, Travis Homer, 1 catch for 4 yards on 1 target. Mabry had a target, didn't catch anything. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside had a touchdown in the end zone, dropped it. Derek Young, very quiet day, didn't really do anything. Noah Fant had a negative yardage on a catch, so Offense was pathetic, to put it kindly. Jacob Eason had a fumble that he recovered. K. Johnson had a muffed punt. Colby Parkinson had a fumble. On the defensive side of the ball, Miles Adams checked in with another sack. He's having a pretty good preseason. I wouldn't be surprised if he takes a roster spot over LJ Collier at this point. And then I guess Tanner Muse also had a blitz sack and a tackle for loss. Nwosu was also getting a lot of pressure. You're not going to see it in the box score. But yeah, Uchenna Nwosu had a quietly good game. He was getting in the backfield constantly. He had some good pressure. Same with Alton Robinson. But again, another thing, for the second week in a row, the tackling was atrocious. The coverage was better. Tariq Woolen had really good coverage against the Bears wide receivers. Against Bears wide receivers in this game. As did Kobe Bryant. I really like that they're playing Kobe more in the nickel, because I think he's doing very well in that spot. He had 2 pass deflections in that game, had 5 tackles. Marquise Blair, yes, he led the team in tackles. He had 9 tackles. He also missed 4 tackles. That is unacceptable. Marquise Blair is a massive defensive liability every time he's stepping on the field. This is his final year of his rookie deal. This is the year he has to prove that he's not a Jag. He's not just another guy. And right now, he's not only showing that he's just another guy, he's showing that he is a defensive liability and no one wants anything to do with him. So yeah, not very impressive. Not a whole lot to go off of. As far as winners and losers, like I said before, winners, Travis Homer and DJ Dallas. Pretty much these 3 running backs had a good game. I would say they did well. Yeah, DJ Dallas had a good game. Kobe Bryant and Tariq Woolen had a much better game. Who else? Who's another positive? Abraham Lucas, again, great in run blocking. Now we'll go into the losers. Both the quarterbacks, bad. Charles Cross, when he wasn't getting penalized, he was doing great, but he got 5 penalties. That's not going to fly in an NFL game. Look, hopefully he got it out of his system, but that's not going to fly. The entire receiving core. Freddie Swain, massive loser. K. Johnson, massive loser because of that muff punt. Aaron Fuller, JJ Arcega-Whiteside, dropping touchdowns in the end zone. Derek Young. Who else? Noah Fant had a bad day again. Not getting used a whole lot. Marquise Blair, massive loser. Who else? E.A. Booniway sucked. Cody Barton sucked. Tanner Muse actually had an okay game. Justin Coleman was slightly better, but that doesn't really mean a lot when the week before you were absolutely terrible. So yeah. Oh, and the entirety of the of Seahawks special teams was absolutely terrible. Massive losers. So yeah. Not a whole lot of positives to take away from this game, other than I hope that they got the bad stuff out of their system early, because if we see that again next week, I don't know how I'm going to feel. I think there's going to be some surprising cuts coming this way, and some trades before the start of the season. Mark my words. So that's kind of my quick and dirty recap of the Bears-Seahawks game. So with that, we're going to go through, and I'm just going to give my updated 53-man roster prediction. So let's start with what hasn't changed. What hasn't changed, Geno Smith and Drew Lock. Geno Smith is still your QB1. Drew Lock is still your is your quarterback 2, but they're both going to make the 53-man. What has not changed, your starting running backs. Rashad Penny is still going to be your running back 1. Kenneth Walker is still recovering from that hernia surgery. Travis Homer, DJ Dallas are still your depth pieces. What might have changed, though, is the wide receiver room. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Freddie Swain, D. Eskridge, Bo Melton, Derek Young, I think, make the 53-man. Just as much as I can't stand Freddie Swain at this point. I think Marquise Goodwin is going to be cut in favor of Bo Melton, just because Marquise Goodwin has been injured for pretty much all of training camp and all of preseason. We haven't really got to see him play a whole lot. So, yeah, I think they're going to cut him in favor of some of the younger guys that that have some higher upside. I don't think Penny Hart makes the 53-man. I think your tight end room has not changed. It's still going to be Noah Fant, Will Dissly, Colby Parkinson. Your offensive line has also not changed. Your starters are going to be exactly the same. Charles Cross, Damian Lewis, Damian Lewis, assuming he's healthy. If he's not healthy and he has to go on IR, then Phil Haynes will slide in and be the starter for him. But until I know for a fact that Damian Lewis is not starting or is not going to play week 1, I'm going to leave him on here. Austin Blythe, Gabe Jackson, Abraham Lucas are your starters. Your backups are going to be Stone Forsythe, Kyle Fuller, Phil Haynes, and Jake Curran. On your defense, nothing has really changed. Well, I take that back. Shelby Harris, Al Woods, Poona Ford, Quentin Jefferson, Brian Monet. They're all going to make the roster. But the last one I had LJ Collier making it. I don't have LJ Collier making it anymore. I have Miles Adams taking his spot. Which, yes, he has the first round pedigree. And that might save him. But he has been unhealthy for all the offseason. He has been unbearably mediocre his entire first 3 seasons in Seattle. And Miles Adams has been making plays when he's gotten opportunities. So if Pete still believes in that always compete mantra, then he should be starting Miles Adams over LJ Collier at this point. Moving on from the defensive line, Uchenna Nwosu, Darrell Taylor, Alton Robinson, Boye Mafe, Tyreek Smith, Vi Jones, Jordan Brooks, Cody Barton, Tanner Muse, Nick Bellore are going to be making This is the tough one, actually. Jordan Brooks, Cody Barton, Nick Bellore, and now Tanner Muse. I have Tanner Muse making the 53-man roster. With the cutting of V.A. Booneway, Nick Bellore was probably is going to make it as a fullback / linebacker. And Tanner Muse, during practice, was the next man up. So, makes perfect sense if they're comfortable with having Tanner Muse as being that backup. For your outside linebackers, Uchenna Nwosu, Darrell Taylor, Alton Robinson, Boye Mafe, Tyreek Smith, and Vi Jones. I have Vi Jones making the 53-man roster. Quarterbacks, Sidney Jones, Artie Burns, Kobe Bryant, Tariq Woolen, Trey Brown, Justin Coleman, Quandre Diggs, Jamal Adams, Josh Jones, and the real question is whether I'm keeping Ryan Neal or Marquise Blair. I'm going to take Marquise Blair, and I'm actually going to take out Vi Jones. Just because I think we can get him on the practice squad, but my defensive backfield is going to be Sidney Jones, Artie Burns, Tariq Woolen, Kobe Bryant, Trey Brown, Justin Coleman, Quandre Diggs, Jamal Adams, Ryan Neal, Josh Jones, and Marquise Blair. And then no new special teamers, as much as I would love a new kicker, because giving Jason Myers $5 million this season to look as shitty as he has just seems unacceptable to me. And with that, that is my quick news recap, my recap of the Bears-Seahawks game, and my updated 53-man roster going into the final week of preseason against the Dallas Cowboys. So Dallas Cowboys, they play them on August 26th. And then following the 26th, they need to cut down their roster to 53 players by, I think it's sometime on someday, the afternoon of Tuesday the 30th, after which they can start forming their practice squads. So yeah, without further ado, that is my roster. If you agree with me or you don't agree with me, drop who your 53-man roster prediction is down below in the comments. If you liked the video, be sure to drop a like. If you want to see more content during the off-season, regular season, and hopefully the postseason, be sure to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell icon to be notified when I post. Without further ado, I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you guys for stopping by. And once again, go Hawks.